Ellen Dakotas. Months have passed since the events referenced in the most recent articles in 3 local newspapers have occurred. When questions have been posed by some of us, we have been told legal counsel has recommended that we say nothing. One court date has passed, another has also occurred. And whether it came out of nowhere or very closely related to these most recent court dates, the 3 newspapers have presented one side's perception and a legal prediction simultaneously. If one side can now openly discuss the case, then it is time to discuss the entire case with the residents of this town. How are our taxpayers' money being spent in an employee-staff situation as is being described in these articles?
There is no taxpayer money being spent.
May I finish?
Yes, but I'm just letting you know there is no taxpayer money being spent.
In what way?
So I don't,
Are you being paid, there is taxpayer money to pay select board members, right?
Yes, selectmen get paid whether they're here or not.
Okay, so is that our tax money?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my statement, I think, is then valid. Our tax money is being spent. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So the one statement that appears is that it's something that's called a Gibbs smack, has been what has been discussed in the paper.
And I'm just going to stop you now because this isn't town business.
Excuse me?
This isn't town business. This is something that occurred that involves myself, that has nothing to do with town business. No one, myself, nor my attorney, has mentioned anything in the paper. Anything that has come out of the paper has come out of documents that have been submitted to the court. So I have not said anything to anyone. So these articles that you're referring to, I don't know where they get their information from, but it did not come from me, and it did not come from my attorney.
Okay, is it about the town?
No.
Your interactions with a town employee are not town business?
What occurred does not involve the town. What is happening now is not between, it's between the state and myself. That's how it is.
At this point in the
This point.
sequence?
Yes, it is.
Yes. I'm not quite sure why it can't be discussed.
Ellen, can I just, and it's really up to Jean to speak, but I just want to say one thing, maybe more than one thing. So this is obviously a contentious situation, and I know that people are concerned, but I don't, when this was looked at back in October, it was made pretty clear to the other board members by law enforcement.
Law enforcement?
Law enforcement, that we really shouldn't be discussing the issues with the case. And I think that this probably isn't the place to try the case. I think that needs to happen somewhere else. So I don't know.
Where?
That's my concern, is that in this format, and you can ask questions, but in this format, I mean, this is pretty clearly between the state and the parties involved. So you know, you're welcome to ask questions, but there's not a lot we're gonna be able to provide for answers. And I would hope that we would, you know, go on the presumption that this needs to be dealt with by the courts and not the board here.
So what is the format for the residents of the town who are
So
concerned?
if you're not happy with me or any of the other board members, there's a recall process. It's in our charter, and you can talk to John Myers, the town clerk, and he can address that.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I perhaps will speak to him then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miriam Rubin. So I beg to differ. There is something in the town charter that deals with this. Something is profoundly wrong in a town where Jean Harmon's bullying behavior is accepted by elected leadership.
So
Her
again,
habit-
that's your
excuse me.
opinion.
Excuse me, let me speak.
Sure.
Her habit of striking subordinates is not accepted by the people of Buxton, and we demand an immediate remedy as outlined in the town charter. Our town charter explicitly states, and I quote, "Strict moral ethics must be practiced by all people, particularly those in positions of authority. These moral obligations require honesty, integrity, and high ethical standards on the part of all elected and appointed officials. Honest, responsible, dedicated leadership in all phases of our community is essential if the town of Buxton is to continue to be a better place to work and live. The charter specifically states that, quote, a person shall forfeit the office of selectman if he or she, one, lacks at any time any qualifications for the office prescribed by this charter. That is the language in our charter. We are here tonight to ask you board members, Dennis and Chad, to follow the town charter. Jean Harmon's behavior and her defense of her actions, as stated in your court documents, against a subordinate indicate that she lacks the strict moral and ethical character required to continue as a member of this select board, and she should be removed. Your inaction regarding the assault charges against Jean are most regrettable. What I have to say here seems like it should not need to be spelled out, but sadly, in this case, it seems like this does need to be said. Most of us grasp the basic tenet that hitting someone is not okay by the time we were out of kindergarten. This seems so obvious that it is hard to imagine it needs to be explained to a group of adults. But apparently it does, since the 8 months since Greg Heffernan was struck in an unprovoked attack, you have failed to make any public acknowledgement of Jean Harmon's assault against this town employee. The explanation Mark Blyer gave us several weeks ago for having taken no action nor said anything as a board since this occurred last October is that Jean's case has yet to be decided in court, and therefore the select board was giving her, instead of Greg, the benefit of the doubt, assuming her innocent until proven guilty despite the irrefutable video documentation of this assault. However, last weekend, Jean publicly acknowledged in all 3 local newspapers that she has indeed made a habit of routinely striking a subordinate. It is incomprehensible that we actually do need to spell this out for you, but in case you don't get it, it is never acceptable for an employer to strike or otherwise intimidate an employee, period. Anyone who continues to hit another person after about the age of 4 is simply a bully.
Do you have
At
a
best,
question?
Jean's statement that she was merely imitating bullying behavior she saw on a TV show is pitiful. There are all kinds of abhorrent behaviors portrayed on TV. Which other Hollywood antics are you thinking is acceptable in the workplace?
Marion, can
I would like to finish, thank you. I'm reading this into the record. Intimidation and harassment are all too often excused by the
Mayor,
statements like
excuse me.
hers.
I don't have to let you take a personal assassination of me at this forum.
I
I
am
don't.
quoting the charter and asking for action according to the charter.
So
Are
you've
you
said
done?
that.
Are you
You've
done?
said that.
I'm not
So-
done, no. May I continue?
Not if you're going to continue to make
I'm
statements.
explaining this to the other board members.
Okay.
Intimidation and harassment are all too often excused by statement like Jean's. The behavior was all in good fun, or the recipient of the harassment had never objected to it before, as if that somehow makes the behavior acceptable. Jean cannot deny assaulting Greg since the incident is crystal clear on the town's own surveillance video. Instead, she's resorting to these feeble excuses. They never were valid and are even less so in light of today's increased awareness of appropriate workplace behavior and bullying. Would you take no action if this had been a case of a male supervisor striking a female employee in the head even once, let alone repeatedly by his own admission? Would that be regarded as ethical, moral behavior? Why is it any different in this case? Your silence up till now has excused Jean's actions and lent credence to her lame excuses. You all have witnessed a continuum of abuse Greg has endured, from sarcastic responses and name-calling to being cuffed in the head. There comes a point at which a line is crossed, and Jean should resign or be removed from the select board, and that time has come. Her excuses defy logic. If this was somehow a friendly slap, why did it occur during a disagreement? Do you really think striking employees is an appropriate way to communicate? Would it have been acceptable for Greg to hit her back? Is it okay that she also exerted her domination over him by removing a communication Greg had placed in each of your mailboxes simply because she disagreed with it? Is this demonstrating moral, ethical behavior? We think not. Her behavior and excuses for it so thoroughly undermine her credibility and highlight her lack of moral character that she cannot remain in a position of leadership, and we ask you to remove Jean Harmon from this board immediately according to the town charter. Thank you.
So, I'm gonna make a comment, and I'm sure that was well-written. You took the time to write that statement. So much of what you said in there doesn't represent the person that I've sat next to for 5 years. When you talk about moral character, I mean, it feels like you're trying to come to a determination of guilt without any kind of...
I'm going off her statements quoted in the newspaper that she has routinely struck Greg Heffernan in the head for a period of 8 years. Her statement.
No, actually, I did not make those statements. That's what you read in the paper. Again, I don't know where they got their information from.
It quoted your attorney and court documents.
Okay. It's okay, Dennis. Thank you for your comments.
I have a copy of this letter to share with the board members who are not present. Should I just give it to Crystal?
Yeah, you can, yeah.